everybody. Thank you so much for
Hello.
coming. Hopefully there's less lag this time. We've kind of tried to address the technical difficulties, but please let us know in the comments there if there's any problems. And welcome, friends of the Gremmels. So today we're going to be talking about basically all the events that are leading up to the burning of Teldrassil and then the battle for Lordaeron a little bit. We basically break this up into two different sections. So for the first half, we're going to talk for about an hour and a half about the novellas from the Collector's Edition of Battle for Azeroth. Then we're going to have a short intermission where we talk about where we listen to a passage from Before the Storm, which is a novel by Christie Golden. And then in the last part, it'll be another about hour discussion. We're going to mainly focus on the burning of Teldrassil. So did you guys want to talk a bit about ourselves, about the channel? Basically, we're a group of friends. We've just started here with our channel. So this is our second live stream ever. We haven't made any videos yet, but we're kind of working towards that. We've got 5 people working on the channel. So there's me, Lhok, Vaski, Rinwiki, and No Heels. We're all World of Warcraft players, and we just really like to nerd out about the lore and try and come up with, what Blizzard is going to do next. So that's why we made this channel, and hopefully with these podcasts, we're trying to get one out every 2 weeks. So it'll be every second Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. And we'll try and do with this format, see how you guys think about it, but 2 topics with a 10 or 15 minute intermission. And we do have a Discord channel already for the YouTube channel. So if you would like to join that Discord, we'll have a link in the description. But it's you can come in and chat to us whenever you want. So let's introduce ourselves. Did you want to start first, Vaski?
Sure, absolutely. Hey there, my name's Vaski. I've been playing for 14 years. I play a troll shaman on Illidan. I've always played shaman, and that's kind of my love, and that's what I focus on the most. I also do a lot of art, which I hope to share in the channel as well too with all of you guys, and share more of all kinds of ideas and lore and such. You're next, Shirv.
Okay. Well, my name is Shirv. It's short for Shirviu. I'm Canadian. Right now I work full time, but I try and play WoW pretty much in whatever free time I have. I do a bit of art too, but mostly I just spend all day doing nerdy things, looking at WoW lore and speculation, watching YouTube videos. That's pretty much all there is about me. Go ahead, Lhok.
Hey, I'm Lhok. I started out on Spinebreaker when Vanilla was launched. I played a hunter there, and then I moved to Frostmourne when the Oceanic servers come out because I'm Australian, and I played a Resto Druid there. I went Horde. I was Alliance with my hunter. Changed to Horde when I went to Frostmourne. I have played a Resto Druid. And then when BC came out, I changed to a Blood Elf Hunter by the name of Lhok, which is why I go by that name. I played that character for 9 years, and then when Legion came out, I changed to a Resto Shaman by the name of Woofles. I've been playing this game pretty much since launch. I've always been interested in the lore, secret finding, reading the books, finding out the hidden things. My biggest thing is going through the world and looking at all the art assets. I've got over 6,000 screenshots of various things I've found within the world, mostly all lore connected. I try really hard to sort of look at the different cultures and stuff like that Blizzard's put in to the game and connect the dots between them and the outside cultures that they draw inspiration from. And that's me.
Awesome, awesome. Love it. All right, guys. So our topics today are going to cover short novellas Elegy by Christie Golden and A Good War by Robert Brooks. Intermission passage is going to be around 15 minutes, and that's going to be by Richard Canuck. And then we're going to also have the Before the Approach of Teldrassil and After Teldrassil Burns, and that's going to be the concept art for the Burning of Teldrassil revealed at the BlizzCon from this year. So let's go ahead and hit it off. We'll have Shirviu start off for us.
Okay, so I've got little artworks that were given out to those who attended the press conference who actually obtained the previews for the novellas Elegy and A Good War. They're playing down in the corner here. So we basically got one image of what appears to be a Night Elf Sentinel, and then we also have an image of Sarfang fighting Malfurion, which is all explained in the novellas. So let's start off with Elegy by Christie Golden, because that seems to occur before the events of A Good War. It's still very up in the air since these are passages without any context given to them. We don't really know the events that precede or that happen after this little passage. But let's try and get into what we all thought of it. I know Elegy definitely gave us some feelings, Lhok. So let's start off. Basically, there's a couple named characters in Elegy. There's Delarin, Farron, Commander Anaris, and there's Ariadnar. So I think those are the 4 characters. It does mention somebody named Marua, but doesn't seem like that person is present, so I'm not sure. But basically, Farron seems to be a feral druid who shows up. He's got Delarin riding on his back, and they show up to speak with their commander, Commander Anaris, the Sentinel leader, and she is basically attacked by a Forsaken. A Forsaken drops out of the trees, or at least what appears to be a Forsaken. An undead drops out of the trees, which they label as a Forsaken, right? What I found really interesting in that is there's no description of any like horde tabards or any horde clothing. Like there's no details on why they think it's the horde. Right at the start of the passage, we just have Delarin saying horde rogues, several of them. That's all we really know. And apparently most of the information that they've gotten are from reports that they've been passed through other outposts along Ashenvale, but because the rogues were targeting their lightsabers, they were basically trying to kill any runners. The information which is being passed around is probably really bits and pieces, I would imagine, right? They don't really have the full story. They're just trying to get a bigger picture, and it's only at this point, right at the start of this passage, when their own outpost is attacked and when they first really understand the depth of the problem. What did you guys think about the start?
Well, I didn't particularly like the start of it because I just don't think that Sentinels would get taken off guard like that. I mean, they're in their home territory. Like, yes, rogues are very good at sneaking and stuff like that, but I really, really don't think that they would get caught off guard like that, unless, of course, these Sentinels are just like new recruits. But it kind of sounds like they're not. I mean, as you said, Shirviu, there's quite a few things here that I don't particularly like. But yes, so you've got that. You've got a Sentinel riding a druid for some reason. I think in one of the artworks I saw that sort of went with this, that the Sentinel was riding a bear, which seems very strange to me. I don't know really of any other places that we've sort of like seen a druid be ridden by anyone. Then you've got the Forsaken, and then a blood elf that comes in as well. And the blood elf is able to get away. Somehow he manages to get out of a Sentinel camp, and they don't chase him. I don't know why they don't chase him. They seem to fire their arrows off to where he disappeared, and It's like, oh, okay, that's it, that's gone. And then they sort of mill about, standing around talking while there's a rogue around. I play a lot of PvP. You don't mess around when there's rogues because, you're going to get sapped, you're going to get ganked. But obviously these rogues are not that way. The Forsaken character was pretty interesting. They mentioned that on the daggers of the Forsaken that there was poison. There's always poison when there's rogues around. I'm not sure why they decided to really sort of emphasize the fact that there's poison on the daggers. Yeah, so there's a bit there that I'm not particularly happy with, but I'll let Vaski have her say on the matter.
I totally agree with you, Lhok, because I was reading the very start of it, and I was just like, Sentinels have very keen hearing. They are very in tune with like nature and how things are, and like they'll hear like even just like grass fluttering. Like they're very hyper aware of their surroundings, and that's what they've been trained for. So I'm just like, how are you getting caught off guard by these people and getting ambushed like that and letting like and killing your Nightsabers in the process? Usually the Nightsabers are like they're already like way into the battle, and the Nightsabers are kind of in the back lines before they can even lunge at things. So I'm just like, things are not adding up to me here. Like there's a whole lot of things that just doesn't make sense. Like it's what their accounts are just, it seems very flawed in a sense and almost bolstered and kind of dramatic and over dramatic in my opinion.
I mean, I agree with both of you guys. I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here. At the start, we do see that the Sentinels were weary. It says their weariness fleeing in the face of true peril to their people. So it seems like, I mean, on one hand, that adds to them not being caught off guard. Because if they were weary, they've clearly already been involved in events of the war. They're already, running around all over the place, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to defend as well as they can. And it's not like they were just peacefully, having lunch break and the rogue showed up. Like they're in the process of telling their commander, we're under attack, and that's when the rogue shows up. So they did have a little bit of like warning, but it's like the rogue was watching the whole time and was waiting for their presence to be announced, and that's when he decided he was going to strike. I mean, now in terms of them being weary, I really don't think that's a good enough reason to explain how they were ambushed, though, right? Especially when it says here Venara, who's I don't know who that is, must be another character in the book, reported that from other outposts they were citing the same situation. The same thing was happening in outposts all across Ashenvale. And so for, the runners to be killed, as you said, the the Nightsabers to all be killed, that's really weird. Like, how does a rogue just kill like all of the Nightsabers? And then it gets even weirder, right? Because like you said with the Blood Elf, when the Blood Elf comes out, I'd like to read you exactly what happens, but it's like there was a blur and another rogue was there. In what seemed like a span of a single heartbeat, half a dozen night elves were left bleeding out or spasming in torment on the verdant forest floor. Like, how does one blood elf just appear, kill 12 night elves, and then get away? And then, just like you said, they fire a rain of arrows in the direction of the trees where he was, and they don't hit anything. So it's like he legitimately like teleported in. Like, it wasn't even that he vanished. He was like gone. So it's very fishy. What did you guys think about that?
Nerf Shadow Step.
Ha! That's exactly what I was thinking.
Shadow Step.
Yeah. It's interesting, like going back to the very start where they like mentioned that several outposts and stuff like that has been like overran by the Horde. As a player, you actually go into Ashenvale. This was brought in with Kata. Garrosh pushed further into Ashenvale. Like, he took down the Silverwing Refuge. He pushed all the way up to Maester's Post, which is the first night elf camp you come to when you leave Darkshore. He pushed all the way up there, and he has his war machines and stuff firing on Maester's Post. So that's already all in the game. So I can't help but think that they're trying to incorporate what they brought in with Kata with that into this book. But going back also with the rogues and stuff like that, you don't really, with those quests, you don't really go on a shadow strike or anything like that. Like, and these rogues just, they don't really sound like the rogues we know of in our like sort of class, unless of course he like fan of knives or something like that, and that's why they're all dead. And then he just like vanished and ran off. But yeah, like I don't know, like it irritates me that the class of rogue was portrayed like this, because it makes them sound like they're incredibly overpowered. And yeah, I don't think that 2 rogues would be able to take down 12 sentinels. I just don't think that that's the case.
And a commander in like 1
Yeah.
second. I find it also weird because there's clearly somebody in cat form there, or bear form, I'm not sure. But you would think that somebody with those type of instincts would be able to smell or would know that they were coming, especially the Night Sabers. It almost seems as though something has completely camouflaged any type of anything about their presence at all. And like for example, we've seen in previous cutscenes in the game from when the Silithus battles first started that Gen Greymane smells Matthias Shaw and he knows he's there even though Matthias is stealthed. So obviously, I mean, this should be obvious, I think, but rogue stealthing doesn't just, arbitrarily cancel out their scent. And then we find out even later in the passage itself in Elegy that when Delaran is, or maybe it's Ariadnar, I don't know, one of the Sentinels is questioning the Forsaken, and there's a line directly in there that talks about his stench and how she has to stop herself from barfing because his breath is so bad and he's like decaying in front of her and he's like bleeding, like throwing up all this like gunk, and she's like put off by the scent to that point. So why was their scent completely camouflaged prior to this when he's literally in the tree right above the commander? What did you guys think?
I totally agree with it. Like, I feel like those Night Sabers should have been able to smell that right away. What was being used to block that scent out? And even afterwards, him going into the Blood Elf going into the trees and twirling away that he did like a flamboyant little bastard that he is. Nothing against the Horde. I love the Horde. But even after then, with like Night Sabers and whatever they had, if they had their owls on them, whatever, they should have been able to pick up on that scent. That's what's bugging me.
Well, not only that, I mean, we're in Ashenvale. There's wisps around the trees in Ashenvale. Like, surely some of their early detection warning would have been able to like hint that that there's these dudes here.
Yeah, it's really weird. And then, of course, later on in the passage itself, when she's trying to get information out of the guy, then he says, "We are everywhere. Have you not yet grasped that it's all of your posts that are under attack? Dozens like me have descended upon them with our painful poisons, and your clever hunters, your vaunted sentinels, your slinking druids, none had the slightest idea." And I think that's the point here, right? That's what's so incredibly weird. There's a dozen of them, and they take out like the entire Night Elven defense on Kalimdor. I mean, granted, most of the Sentinel army are sailing towards Veralis right now to bolster the attacks in the Seething Shore. But that aside, 12, like dozens of us, okay, so maybe 24 of them, or like, it just doesn't, it's very weird. It's not like, why didn't this happen before if it was that easy to just take them out? Like, what has changed? And I mean, We have Azerite now, maybe, but does that really, is that really the difference here that we're seeing? And how would Azerite enable these guys to do this, really? I'm almost wondering if they are maybe using void powers or something, because it sounds like Illyria, the way that he just, in a blur, he just appears, takes out 12 guys, and is gone, That was my thought.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too, because you can't really like sense void. Like animals don't sense it other than like maybe a presence, but like even then that was caught off guard. So that would make sense that Illyria would have a presence among them, and who knows, that'd be something else if it was Illyria.
Well, we did see that void rune in Orgrimmar, so could that have something to do with this?
Probably not. I mean, I feel that it's unlikely that it was Illyria. I mean, we see Illyria go up against the Horde in the Battle for Azeroth attack on Lordaeron, so I don't think it's Illyria. Maybe the rogue just had badass evasion, and that's why he appears as a blur.
Yeah, he's like a consortium guy.
Oh Lord.
Teleports are real.
He was lagging, you guys. He was. They couldn't shoot him with the arrows because he rubber banded.
His frames dropped.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to point out is that night elves, they have a connection to the land, they have a connection to nature. They're able to actually, and there was a druid there as well. And if you've ever played a druid, Garrett, this guy appears that he could be a feral druid, or a guardian druid at the very least. They know about poisons. They can sense poisons. And the poison dagger that took so long to explain that it was poisoned and stuff that was there, the druid should have picked up on that straight away. I mean, for starters, that rogues nearly always have poisons. They're known for it. But that druid, or the sentinels at the very least, should have picked up on that blade was poisoned before it became such a big deal.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And for any of you who might not have the passage right in front of you, or have read it recently, basically how the events unfold is the Forsaken is there lying on the ground, the druid is on top of him, the feral druid is pinning him down, and he's wounded. The Forsaken is wounded. So the sentinel approaches and she starts to threaten him. She picks up his dagger and she says, you still have 5 fingers, I can make it 4. Like she's trying to get information out of him about what his orders are, why they're there. And as she brings the blade closer, he says, I'll speak. He's angry. And it's at that point when he angrily says, I'll speak, that's when she realizes the blade is poisoned. And that even though he's dying, he doesn't even want that level of pain. So why did it take that long?
Yeah, like that's my point exactly. Like, why did it take so long for them to realize that the blade was poisoned? And now that we have the information that the blade was poisoned, I mean, maybe it appears later on down the track or anything like that. It just doesn't seem like a very big deal to me.
Even with them saying that how these sentinels were wary and everything, is that you see somebody pop out and act the way they are, they're trained to recognize like classes, types of warriors, stuff like that. Why wouldn't you just immediately assume that there is a form of poison and adhering and doing defensive to block that off?
And to top it all off, she says to the guy, what kind of poison did you use? I would guess it's a painful one. You Forsaken like those. If you do not tell me something useful soon, I will conclude you are stalling for time and therefore you have nothing to tell me. Her voice was cold. And it's like, you're the one who's wasting time. Why do you ask him what poison it is? I'm starting to feel like maybe the poison is important. That's the only way I can explain it. Either it makes no sense and they should have known that it was a poison, and we have some weird thing going on where the night elves are not being portrayed properly, which honestly was my initial thought. Or there's always the chance that there is something special about this poison and she doesn't recognize it, which is, red flag number one. She knows that the Forsaken use lots of different types of poisons. You'd think she would be familiar with it. I'm almost thinking it's not a Forsaken style poison. It's maybe something different. It's just odd that Christie Golden focuses so much on the poison, just like you said, when it's like, isn't it obvious that a Forsaken rogue would have that?
Maybe it's Moragrain. Maybe the Forsaken found the Moragrain stash of Fandral, and they're going to use that against the Night Elves. I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
But it would make sense. Like, Moragrain's like an old god type of poison. Remember, like from when we had to go and collect it back in vanilla, and Fandral was like holding onto it and poisoning Malfurion. So maybe it is that kind of style of poison. No, I would hazard a guess that most night elves would not really know about it, since it seems like it was all kept pretty hush-hush.
Gizmo's saying void poison. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said with the rune in Orgrimmar, I'm anticipating that this is not actually a horde attack at all. And as we know, with the old gods having their hand in the entire Alliance Horde conflict, that it could very well be that, either this Desolate Council or the Twilight's Hammer or some other forces at work, somebody working with Azshara who may have arranged these attacks is what, I'm wondering. Maybe that's why the poison couldn't even be recognized by Night Elves. Like, I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt that there's a good reason for that,
I would really see the Twilight's Hammer doing it more than anything, because they're masters at deception, just like Kil'jaeden was. Not to bring the Legion in on this and whatnot with the Deceiver and all that, but they're master deceivers. They can cloak, they can change, they can do what they need to get their agenda done. I would not be surprised if they killed Horde members dressed up as them. And I mean, they're elaborate. They're very precise on what they do, and I would not be surprised if it was some form of Twilight's Hammer doing such things. Agreed, Bravo.
The one line in particular that made me wonder if the Desolate Council was involved. I mean, granted, I do overanalyze things, and for every single thing that they bring up, I'm wondering, why did the writer put that in, right? And she says to the Forsaken, talk to me, and perhaps I will let you live. And he says, live? He grunted in that awful, hollow tone so distinctive of his race. I have not lived in some time, elf. And the way he immediately reacts to that makes me think Desolate Council, because that's what they seem to be all about. This entire conflict over their own living, and how they maybe they don't want to live forever, or whatever Sylvanas is trying to do that they don't agree with, right? I was just wondering, why was that specifically included in here? Could that be hinting towards it?
I mean, it's possible that it could be hinting towards it, but when I read that, I was just like, yeah, that's the sort of sardonic dry wit I would expect from a Forsaken player. To just turn it around back on them and say, I'm undead. Like, do you not see me not living here? Like, why would you say something so stupid to a undead or a Forsaken?
Now what catches me as that is that you have a Forsaken. Somebody, we already have the tensions rising high of this fight between Sylvanas with the Alliance, with Anduin and all these things. So if Forsaken to do such an act like that is also then pegging it once again of that Sylvanas is the orchestrator of all of this. And once again, and I do not think Sylvanas has any part of this whatsoever. I think it's a very good ploy on the writer's hands of trying to deter and make everybody think that this is an expansion about Sylvanas and her agenda, including with the Alliance as well. So that whole notion of a Forsaken being the main one to poison attack like that, and therefore making it more seem so that the Horde and especially Sylvanas is orchestrating such a thing.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that it is a Forsaken and a Blood Elf, both the two races that we see on the Eastern Kingdoms. So you've got that as well. Like they're also the two people who stand to lose the most from this whole thing going down. Because if the Alliance catch wind, they're going to come and siege those two cities. So there is also that angle too. It does seem like they are trying to point the finger at Sylvanas being the aggressor. You know, maybe Garrosh 2.0, which I really, really hope that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, if the old gods were orchestrating this, it would make perfect sense for them to have Blood Elves and Forsaken as the attackers, because when the Night Elves are completely eliminated and moved out of Kalimdor, what are the Alliance going to do over on Eastern Kingdoms? The Night Elves who relocate over there are going to want to immediately attack the Horde, which are the Undead and Blood Elves. So to have them being the main aggressors maybe fuels that hatred.
Totally agree with that. It's just as soon as I started reading it, I was like, oh, a Forsaken and a Blood Elf, both on the Eastern Kingdom, that can not benefit from this whatsoever. That doesn't add up whatsoever either. It's just like Christie Golden and all of them they're playing an awesome game.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, the Forsaken and the Blood Elf wouldn't. Well, the Blood Elf might know Kalimdor well, but you'd think that the Forsaken wouldn't know Kalimdor well. So to have those, I mean, if it wasn't for the sake of hatred and the old gods and chaos and trying to perturb them, what other reason would the real Horde actually have to send those two types of people to do the ambush? You'd think that you would send somebody who actually knows the area.
Forsaken and Blood Elves, just as a whole, they're probably the better two that you would actually want to send out of the Horde faction for subtle missions, so like your specialist missions.
As counterintuitive as it sounds, I always thought that Tauren were supposed to be really sneaky.
Ever seen a Tauren stalk a python? Of course you haven't. Yes, they are. Tauren are supposed to be good hunters, but in the sense of like an assassin-like mission, you wouldn't want to send them. You would be sending your Forsaken, and you'd be sending your Blood Elves. Blood Elves are master assassins just due to their sort of arcane backgrounds. They're able to have enhanced stealth. And your Forsaken are good with blending into the shadows, hiding. I think they do have some. I know the Shadow Stalkers at the very least, the ones you see in Shadowfang Keep and stuff like that. You see them quite a lot in the forward missions of the Forsaken. So it does make sense that they would be there. As to going into Ashenvale, I still don't think that, even though these guys are like the master assassins of the Horde, I still don't think that they should have been able to get past those Sentinels.
Agreed. And another thing, right? Why do they let them live? They just killed 12 Night Elves in 1 second, and then the Blood Elf just leaves. Like, I'm thinking that they're trying to set up the narrative of, oh my god, we need to go warn Darnassus. The Horde just ambushed all of our camps. And that makes me question whether that's really the story, you know what I mean?
Right.
It says they killed the Night Sabers, they killed the runners, they made sure that the word couldn't get out, and then, oh, well, this one druid, I think it's the druid who turns flight form and go. I'm not sure. One person who survives this attack is told to go send word to Darnassus, and it's like, at this point, is it really believable that that person would even make it there unless they were allowed to make it there?
Yeah, it's a sentinel that is sent to go to Darnassus, and the druid is sent to the opening, so the Moshugan ramparts. Or Moshugan? No. Mogsham. The ramparts down in the Barrens. I can't think of their name off the top of my head. But yes, there's the entry into the Barrens, into Ashenvale, where the Horde and the Alliance have been clashing over for ages. It's down near the Horde entrance to Warsong Gulch, and it's also near Silverwing Grove or Silverwing something, that the Sentinels have their first outpost just next to the Barrens, where their entrance to Warsong Gulch is.
Yeah, it's Silverwing Grove and Silverwind Refuge. I'm always confused by the two.
And they're both fairly close to each other. Like there's a lake in between and a little hollow. And yeah, so they're very, very close to the border of the Barrens. Speaking of that, like in the little novella, the rogue mentions that they're or is it the Sentinel that was questioning him mentions that they're clearing a path.
I think, yes, it's the Sentinel, actually, who assumes they're clearing a path, and then the Forsaken laughs. And to me, honestly, everything, when I get this in my head, it's pointing towards a setup, and that they're being framed, right? The Forsaken doesn't give her any orders. He lets her believe whatever she wants, and he laughs because they've won, because she thinks that the Horde is clearing a path. I find it very unlikely when we start to talk about a good war here in a minute. I find it very unlikely that that's just a setup, and that Saurfang is down there trying to lure Malfurion out, and that the Horde are fighting on the edge of the Barrens as a distraction so that these assassins can take out all the Sentinels. I find that a bit hard to believe. I don't think that's what's going on. Just by reading A Good War, the small amount we have, it just doesn't seem like they're aware that, we just need to survive a little longer, we just need to stall so that our assassins can take everyone else out. Like, there's no mention of that.
If it's true and they are clearing a path, why? What are your thoughts? Like, why would they be clearing a path for like one of the Azeroth war machines or the tanks that we see in Alpha, like to come and attack the tree, perhaps? Or like, I can't think of as to why they would clear a path through Ashenvale apart from just trying to kick the Night Elves out.
See, now, I don't. When I see that word like clearing a path, I see it as more of like a metaphor, not like an actual like clearing a path for like war machines. I'm saying like a metaphorical like clear the path for like who's next to come, like Ajara releasing old gods, that kind of thing. Something much more of clearing a path and something easy to obtain and make things obtainable rather than like what that like an actual path itself.
If it was clearing a path, then yeah, I think it would have to be a path for the Azerite war machine to move up. And I think that is inevitably what will happen. I think we're going to see that the Horde play right into the plan of these terrorists, and that once the path is clear, I would imagine the Horde do push all the way up through Kalimdor with their siege weapons, and that they get all the way to the tree. I'm not sure if they had the intention of blowing up the tree, though, even at that point. Like, let's just assume, for the sake of the argument, that the Twilight's Hammer or the Desolate Council, old god workers, come in, take out all the Sentinels, and allow for the Horde to push all the way up to Darkshore. Let's assume that happens. At that point, would the Horde really fire on Teldrassil? Like, are they... I mean, we have reason to believe Saurfang wouldn't want to do that. Bane wouldn't want to do that.
Not even Vol'jin, even if he was still alive, he wouldn't do it. Literally, none of the Horde would do it. Thrall wouldn't even allow it, even though he's part of the Earthen Ring now. Like, it would not be into the question of it. And I don't even think Sylvanas would do such a thing, other than going there and possibly trying to see a truth with the rest of her sisters and coming to an agreement on things.
I think the reason Sylvanas is being framed, I think the reason they chose Sylvanas to frame, I should say, is that she's the most likely to do it. But as you guys will see in the quote that we've chosen for our intermission from Tides of War, it basically explains how not even Sylvanas would do it, because she knows full well that if they drive the Night Elves out of Kalimdor, the Alliance will attack Lordaeron. She already knows that that's what would happen. She has no desire to take Kalimdor. That's why in Before the Storm, the passage that was released at BlizzCon, it says she wants Stormwind, because it makes much more sense from her perspective in a strategical way that they would want to reroute the Horde out of Eastern Kingdoms and move them over to Kalimdor. Why would she do the opposite? At least from her own standpoint, for her own goals, it makes no sense. She's only like perturbing the attack on her city that happens.
Yeah, that is true. That is mentioned in the excerpt that we'll be playing in the intermission. It's just this whole clearing a path that's got me like hooked up. I mean, I know in Darkshore that we've got the Maester's Glaive, we've got the Twilight Hammer in there. We've got quite a lot of cultist activity. We've got in and around the area. So we've got the Maester's Glaive, we've got the old Twilight encampment that was around the Tower of, I think it was like Narralax, I think. That's up the top in the north near the troll camp. You've also got down in Ashenvale right at the tip, you've got Black Fathom Deeps, which was an old hub of Twilight cultists. So, I mean, could it be possible that they're trying to push through to get to that maybe? I don't know. Like, yes, it could be metaphorical, but I guess I'm thinking like literally here. So it might not be the case that that's the truth, but I can't help but see it. Why would they want to push through?
From the Horde perspective, I honestly can't think of any reason why they would. And that's why I don't think that was the plan. I would say that whoever's framing Sylvanas wants the Alliance to think that.
The thing is that catches me off guard is like with them saying that they're carving a path for all this to happen. Wouldn't that mean they'd want Teldrassil to kind of start blockading themselves and creating a safety net for themselves? That's what gets me in this, is that then how is this burning the Teldrassil and such going to happen when you have all this time starting from the Barrens? You have time to prepare yourself. So carving a path and whatnot, like, it's confusing me because it's ultimately leading to this thing. It must either be an inside job, and I honestly think it's somebody part of the Alliance at this point, interlinked with Twilight's Hammer, etc., and so forth. Like, there's so many options that it could be, but it's not up to me for like how war would see, because you would have people who would be path warning them and letting some of them survive.
Oh no, I think Vaski lagged out.
Exactly, that's what that they're carving a path for just to witness it or it.
Vaski, you like lag spiked real bad, so I'm gonna give you a second, but we'll like need you to repeat yourself.
Okay, no problem.
I'm good now?
Yeah, I didn't have any. That's weird. I didn't see any lag happening. But so what I was agreeing with Bravo is that they're like clearing a path for the Horde to be present when it all goes down. And I really feel like there's an orchestration between somebody within the Alliance and somebody either with the Twilight Hammer or somebody interlinked with the Old Gods and Azshara. There's got to be this whole entire interlinking, because why would you allow a carved-to-be path, let them set themselves up. You're letting them get ready for the ultimate showdown, and you're allowing that to happen. Like, these alliance can blockade themselves and get ready and understand all this, and like they're seeing this, but why is that happening? Why are you allowing them to live and giving them forewarning going back home? I don't understand that.
It's interesting that you mentioned that it could be an inside job from the Alliance, because we know from the Sentinel or, again, the Rogue, I can't remember. I just remember being outraged by a certain section in the end of the novella bit that we get to read. The Night Elven fleet is going to Feralis, and that Tyrande is in Stormwind. So it would also appear that it seems that there could be something else in play, that the tree, to me at the very least, seems like it only has like maybe one defender, which is Malfurion.
Yeah, and as we're going to see, Malfurion is down there fighting off Saurfang. The Sentinel, the main Night Elf fleet, is going to Feralis for the Seething Shore. Why is Tyrande in Stormwind? Because that's where I think the inside job would come in. If we have actors within the Horde and actors within the Alliance who are equally on, let's say, the side of the Twilight's Hammer, or I mean, I'm sure the Twilight's Hammer are involved, and I'm sure that I feel as though the Desolate Council are also involved, but I'm wondering, I mean, for all we know, there could be other organizations out there that haven't been introduced yet. There could be something working alongside with the Twilight's Hammer. Yeah, the Twilight's Hammer seem highly likely, but what is going on with Matthias Shaw? What is going on with, it seems as though Anduin is not getting the full information from the SI7, and could that all be part of this too? Could the Desolate Council and these corrupted SI7 members be, part of the overarching scheme? Because what we saw in the Silithus quest line is, as Alliance, the Alliance seemed like the aggressors. At least as far as I'm concerned, the Alliance appear to show up and they strap bombs to the Horde's machines. They kill the Horde workers. The Horde themselves, at that point anyway, don't seem to be aggressors at all. They're just taking the resources. So I almost felt as though those Alliance members who were doing that, who are part of SI7, who don't even want Anduin to know that that's what's going on, could be either informants for the Twilight's Hammer, or they could be working alongside with these Horde members who ultimately just want to further the chaos and the Old God's goals. I wonder if that had something to do with Tyrande being in Stormwind, if maybe she was lured there just so she wouldn't be present for this battle.
I mean, it makes sense that someone from the Night Elven contingency, like the leadership and stuff, would be in the embassy after the fall of the Legion. Like, I can understand that. So it's either that they're taking the opportunity to attack while she's gone, or, yeah, like you said, they've made it so that she's not there when the attack goes down. And, yeah, it could very well be why she's freaking out in the embassy, because Elune might have given her another vision of her tree burning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with how she's acting over in the embassy. You would think that she would want to go back. I mean, with the what's happening over in Silithus, don't you think she would be needed in Kalimdor? What is she even doing in the embassy that's so important? Let's be real. I kind of feel like she should at least have a Hearthstone or something. Like, what kind of planning is this, Anduin?
Right, exactly. I find that way too coincidental for her to be all the way in Stormwind doing whatever it is at the embassy and not being there for the fire going down, because she is one to get visions from Elune. And the thing is, you would think with her and her undying love for Mel Malfurion, you would think you would be right there alongside of him with this going down, and it's your homeland. And granted, yes, the tree hasn't been blessed or anything like that, but it's your home. You'd think you would want to be rushed there and be there for when that goes down, so you can do as much as you can to halt any damage or irreparable damage.
With that, did you guys want to move into a good war? Because
Absolutely.
that's what's happening, right? Saurfang is fighting against Malfurion. Basically, Malfurion is portrayed in the art down there. You can see as people are almost assuming he might be influenced by some kind of dark powers. Maybe I've heard some people speculate. Just because the way he's portrayed, he's so shadowy, he's so powerful. He seems to be acting without mercy. He simply, lashes out at Saurfang, almost kills him. He's killing any of the orcs that decide to defend Saurfang, and Saurfang knows full well, like, no, get out of here. You're of no use to me. Like, he's gonna one-shot you. Like, and it just makes me wonder, like, what exactly is going on. We don't know what happened before this. Probably, if I had to guess, I would say that Malfurion only shows up there after he finds out that all the Sentinels have been assassinated. That's what I would have to assume. But I don't know. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I had a sneaking suspicion that maybe that Sentinel did actually get through to Darnassus, and that's why Malfurion's now in the war and showing up in Astronal. You mentioned that people are like taken aback by how he's shadowy and how he's so powerful, and that he's got like all the thorns and everything everywhere. That is the actual power of an archdruid. Like, we see this in the very start of Stormrage with the fight between, or the vision that Thura gets between Malfurion and Broxgar. We see how he is just instantly able to make a staff and throw out thorns, and the fight is basically over before it even starts. Like, archdruids are insanely powerful. We read in Robert Brooks's A Good War that the Night Elves specifically build their inns and their houses with only 3 walls, so that they have access to nature, so their druids can actually rip apart the buildings if they want to. So they're easily defended, and the druids can call on nature whenever they need to. This is legit the power of an archdruid. It's why Saurfang knows he's pretty much screwed when Malfurion steps through the door. Because this guy is insanely powerful, and I'm not sure why people have thought that he might, yes, he might be possessed, because he certainly, in at least Stormrage, was almost entirely gone underneath the corruption that Xavier's put into him. He knows he can't go into the Rift of Alm, and that he has been close to corruption for many, many years. So yes, there is that taint that he'll never be able to erase. And yes, he could very well be under the sway of that. His mind could be clouded, but I don't see why people would be so in awe of his power, considering this is what an archdruid is actually supposed to be.
I agree 100%. I don't think Malfurion did anything out of character in that passage, so I think he's fine at this point.
Gizmo, I think it's very unlikely, given the power creep between Saurfang and Malfurion, that Saurfang would have been able to cleave him in half. I mean, I love Saurfang, but I really don't think that Saurfang would have the power to be able to take down Malfurion. Malfurion is, well, old. He's still quite, I guess, fitter in a sense, whereas Saurfang is starting to come to the end of his natural life. He's lived a very long time for an orc, and I think that he's slowing down, and I think the passage of how the Night Elf was able to lure him outside is supposed to give us that sort of hint that Saurfang is not as he once was.
As well, all the orcs are very quick to try and help him. They all get in his way. They try and stop Malfurion. They have so much respect for their elder, for Sarfang, and they're just leaping in front of him, like trying to get him to run. I think they know that he doesn't really stand a chance.
As much as that hurts to admit.
Yeah, it does hurt to admit because I really love Saurfang. And the thing is, he's such an old man and he's been through so much, like, literal and figuratively, like, so much shit. Like, losing a son, everything from, like, going on with family, etc. and so forth. It's just, he's been through so much. He's an old man now, like, and he doesn't have much fight left in him. And he states that quite often in the game. It's just like, he doesn't know how much more he can do.
What I found interesting was that they're clearly trying to develop Sarfang's character. He's clearly going to be an important person, at least at the start of BFA for sure. The fact that he surrenders at the battle for Lordaeron, he wants to go speak with Anduin, he breaks out of the stockades, and he does not escape with Zul. I mean, sure, the rescue mission wasn't for him anyway, but point being, I think that when you read into A Good War, you can see how they're trying to portray Sarfang, and that he's more empathetic towards others. He doesn't kill for sport. He doesn't kill needlessly, and he's not the type of person who would have been comfortable, I think, with the entire Night Elf Sentinel army just being assassinated in cold blood like that. I don't think Sarfang would see that as honorable or necessary. The entire situation is just very strange. I mean, the book or the passage actually opens up with a dead elf who he's looking at the elf in the face, and Sarfang is thinking how it almost looks like the elf is going to cry because he's that in tune with even the emotions of his enemies, right?
Yeah, and then when the night elf does die, they go on to say that it was an honourable death, and how his people should be happy that he died with honour. That's the conversation between Sorfang and the other orc. I think it's like Morka, could be. But yeah, so yes, he is still very honourable, and yes, he is empathetic. But I mean, he was always empathetic. One of the very first quests you do with Sorfang, just in general, and you get to see his character be more developed, is in Lich King, and you go to on the Berean Tundra. You go and you help him do a few things, and then he turns up and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm not going to let you kill countless needless people. If I can kill you here, then that's what I'm going to do. And he kills this necromancer, and then he basically puts his hood up over his head and just walks off. So he's not the type to sort of just kill needlessly, and he wants to save as many people as he can from being slaughtered.
I'm just reading in chat. My money's on Sarfang. Raid boss Sarfang Greymane. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking more and more into his honorable, how honorable of an orc he is. Even though he knows that it's folly and that it's kind of a stupid thing to say, he still challenges Malfurion to Makara. It's he can't help but think down that very rigid, honorful way of sort of battle.
And I think the purpose partially of that portrayal at the start, just like you said, people should already know that Sarfang's empathetic, that he cares about honor. That shouldn't be surprising. But what's interesting to mention, though, is I honestly think it's making it seem as though Sarfang isn't aware of the assassins, of the Forsaken and Blood Elf assassins that we just talked about in Elegy. Because Sarfang says, you did well spotting this assassin, but he should never have come this far. It's as far as Sarfang's concerned, this is like the line where neutral territory, where the entire conflict is happening. And if this assassin came too far in coming out to where Sarfang is, then to me it's like implying that he thinks that the assassin would have been safer if he just stayed home. And it's like, well, does Sarfang really know what's even going on? Like, if that assassin hadn't been out here, he would have just died wherever off he was in the forest, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely agree on that one for sure.
But I don't know. I'm definitely getting the impression that it's possible that Sylvanas' plans aren't being communicated to Sarfang. When you read the prologue of Before the Storm, Sylvanas says how she's very intimidated by Sarfang, right? And that she knows if she did anything out of line, he'd be the first one to step up, and that she needs, basically, her counselor, she just talks to Nathanos, and I feel like if she did have any schemes, Sarfang probably wouldn't know anyway.
Yeah, but having said that about Sylvanas, she also comes in to step up and saves him from Malfurion. She hits Malfurion with one of her dark arrows, and then like Malfurion turns his attention towards Sylvanas rather than Saurfang, and then the building collapses in on top of Saurfang.
I wonder if the attempt was in order to kill Sarfang. Like, do you think that's what the goal here was, or do you think they were just trying to pit Sarfang and Malfurion against each other?
Personally, I think they just did the next step of luring out commanders. So you had the little night elf lure out Saurfang, and then when Malfurion was attacking Saurfang, Sylvanas stepped in, and then that's what they were actually trying to. That's who they were trying to lure into the open. That's my take on it. Definitely, if they could kill Saurfang, then that would be a huge boon and a huge win on their part. It would also I guess like not encourage or discourage, that's the word I was looking for, discourage orcs and that sort of thing within the army of the Horde, because Saurfang's known as a hero. He's like a great commander and all that sort of stuff. So in order for that, so if the Alliance were able to kill him, then, you know, that'd be a huge win for them. Could possibly even like stop or halt the advance into Ashenvale while they have to sort of deal with that. Because if Sylvanas tries to push the orcs further without, you know, properly going through with the burial rites and that sort of stuff for Saurfang, she would alienate a good chunk of her army. So she wouldn't want to do that. But I do think that they were trying to lure out Sylvanas if they could.
I definitely agree with you that it's like a large ploy to bring them and congregate them all out into the open and have all of this go down, and then basically get at each other's throats and create this giant tension and really deter them from seeing what the real issue that's going at hand and what's really going on.
And again, like, I feel like Sarfang, this really shows that Sarfang has no idea of anything that's happening with the assassins or why Malfurion is coming at him like this. Because Sarfang says to him, "You can run if you're afraid." And then it says Sarfang said he was buying time. That was all. The only victory Sarfang could hope for was for the latest Horde troop movements to be delivered to Sylvanas' hands so the battle might continue. So Sarfang isn't there like, if only you knew of our plans, Malfurion, like, we will be victorious, like, we're gonna burn your tree down. Like, no. He's like, the only victory Sarfang could even hope for was that they would get more reinforcements in time to, like, sufficiently defend against this attack right now.
Agreed. Totally.
But I think it's really cool that they're showing us Malfurion's power, and I hope that, you know, we do get to see more of it, but how's that going to end? Because there's no way that Malfurion is just going to leave. Like, with what's going on right now, why would he abandon that? If he really has come here thinking the Horde have just like assassinated all of the Sentinels and that they're clearing a path or whatever, then wouldn't he just want to basically destroy them? Like, how are Sylvanas? How are the events going to unfold so that Sylvanas, Nathanos, and Sarfang are standing there in front of the tree for those arts, right? Like, somehow something's got to happen where Malfurion is just out of the picture.
Yep, I think Malfurion dies in that, possibly in that attack. Like he gets hit with one of those dark arrows, which are like poisoned and stuff like that, and he ends up dying. And I think that's why you don't see Tyrande at the Battle of Lordaeron. I think that when Malfurion dies in the initial ambushes of Ashen Vale and that sort of thing, that Tyrande then goes from Stormwind to Teldrassil, but doesn't make it back in time. The tree goes up in flames.
Oh boy.
I think I'd have to agree. It doesn't make sense. Like, where would Malfurion go? Either he's going to be taken captive, like first choice. Choice number 2, he's going to be wounded, and they just leave him, but he magically survives. And then choice number 3 has got to be that they kill him. And I could actually see that happening simply because he's so enraged and he's so bloodthirsty, and if what we're saying is true, that, you know, these Elegy precedes A Good War, and that he's under the impression that the Horde have just assassinated all of the Sentinels, you'd think Malfurion would be there for, like, vengeance. Like, he would be going all out, and maybe the Horde have no choice but to kill him. That's the thing, right? One alliance, as strong as he may be, one alliance Archdruid against Sylvanas, Sarfang, whoever else is there. Apparently Nathanos may be there somewhere. Or what if these reinforcements that Sarfang are talking about is Nathanos? Or maybe it's, you know, who knows who's going to show up, but maybe that's what happens and turns the tide of battle and they take Malfurion out.
I think that that's just how it's going to pan out. Astronar is on an island. It's in the middle of a lake. There's only 2 ways you can sort of get out on foot, which are 2 bridges. The only other way you can get out is by air. And Astronar is actually one of the places that you go to in Kato, and it's under attack by the Horde. And I can't see, unless Malfurion gets injured and then turns into a bird and flies out of there, that's the only way that he's going to get out of there alive. Like, unless somehow he's able to take down Sylvanas, Sorfang, and all the orcs that are stationed there, I just can't see Malfurion being able to get out of there alive.
I don't either, because that's exactly how I was thinking. Like, they all congregate into this very pinned-in area, and they're at each other's throats. Eventually, somebody is going to be ultimately their life taken from this, and I would think Malfurion would be the one, especially with after everything that went down in the nightmare and everything, and he has this remnant of corruption in him, and you can kind of tell that he's scarred and broken a little bit. And I feel like that rage that we were talking about is really going to be the ultimate death of him going and facing Sylvanas.
Yes, it's very good that you mentioned what he's like in Legion. I was just thinking that this mirrors, like this attack on Astronaut mirrors exactly what he did in Legion when Ysera was corrupted. So he gets enraged, he just flies off the handle and goes in for the attack. And it seems that while he's blinded by his rage, he's actually slightly weakened in that regard. Like he's either got slower reflexes, or he's so blinded by his rage, he's just looking to kill someone. So it means that if that's the case, then if he's fighting a smart enemy like Zavis or like Sylvanas, that he's more likely going to be taken unawares, and he's more likely to go down.
And I think Sylvanas, of all people, might be the type of person who would actually kill Malfurion. Sarfang's clearly out of the picture. By the end of A Good War, his legs don't work anymore. He's got a building that's collapsed on him, but he's not dead. They make sure to say death isn't supposed to hurt that much. Like, he's pretty much, it feels like Anduin breaking the Divine Bell. You know, he's completely messed, like, I think he's out of the picture pretty much for the duration of this little battle that's occurring between Malfurion and now probably Sylvanas. Question is, if Sarfang isn't actually observing how it unfolds, is Sarfang even going to know? Is he even going to be a proper witness for Malfurion's death? Like, if Sylvanas is the only one there and she kills him, are people even going to listen to her when she says, I had no choice?
I don't think so, because I think it's going to enrage even, like, Bane, like, all of them. Like, I think everybody is going to end up being pissed off with Malfurion being taken out. Because you have the Horde that are also part of the whole entire Cenarian circle with that. You're going to see this giant burst of why would you do something like that, because that breaks even the bond of what the Cenarian circle is. What's going to happen with the Cenarian circle with Malfurion, and if that happening, you're going to have the wrath of even druids themselves over such things like that.
For sure. And I think it's for that reason. That's why they're setting up the events in this way. Sarfang's out of the picture. Sylvanas is now trying. Sylvanas might even think that Sarfang's dead, right? Like, she might think that Malfurion just killed Sarfang. And so what's she gonna do, right? I'm getting the impression that Malfurion probably does die here. And that's why he's not in the picture. We see Sarfang, Sylvanas, and Nathanos in front of the tree. And everything's kind of just falling into place for that line of story where no one really knows what did or did not happen besides Sylvanas herself. And who's going to believe her?
Right. Now, Gizmo, you say, but Bane fights at Lordaeron with no qualms of what happened. But what if the fight of Lordaeron is before the burning of Teldrassil? Because that's not into place yet of what comes first.
I think I'm going to say the same thing Lhok is about to say. Bane does not fight. Bane fights at first. He does, but if you pay attention to the characters around you during that scenario, I'm not sure, like, I haven't played it myself, so you might want to go back and check for yourself as well, but I'm fairly sure as soon as the plague goes out, Bane stops fighting. Bane is like off in a little corner watching, and Anduin and Sylvanas are there fighting, and we've got the plague spreaders and everything, and Bane is like, peace out. Like, he's just watching it, like, in horror. I don't think he's okay with the situation.
No, that's exactly right. And even when you do come up with Bane, he does actually question Nathanos pretty severely. Like, yes, they're in a combat situation. Yes, they're fighting to save Lordaeron, but it's not that Bane just fights with no qualms. He has questions that he wants Nathanos to answer, and Nathanos goes, we're in the middle of a war, like, stop talking and just get on with it, type of thing. Like, it's not so it makes me think more so that something is not quite right there, that Bane is definitely questioning what's going on between Nathanos and Sylvanas, or at least their motives.
So let's just do a last little point here before we do our intermission. But I just want to ask you guys what you think. Do you think Nathanos is working with these old god, Twilight's Hammer, Desolate Council, whatever it may be, or do you think he seriously has Sylvanas's and the Horde's back?
I think Nathanos is totally fine. This is my opinion. I wonder what some of our viewers' opinion on that. I think he's totally fine. I have a problem with Messiah Shaw because that boy is not consistent. Even his eye color is off.
When it comes to Nathanos, just doing the Stormheim quests and that sort of thing, I think he would actually sell the Horde down the river. If Sylvanas was in trouble, I definitely think that he would put Sylvanas' welfare and Sylvanas' well-being over the top of anyone else.
You even think over her own Forsaken?
Yes, definitely. I think that when he made his choice in Dark Mirror, he completely and utterly quelched any sort of feelings or harbourings that he might have had otherwise, that something's not right. And I know that in the small little bit that we read of the new book of Christie Golden's, that it sounds like he's not quite okay with the things that are going on with Sylvanas. I still think, from what I know so far, because I haven't read the book yet, even though I did read that excerpt, that I still think that he would sell everyone down the river just to make sure that Sylvanas was okay.
I mean, he is infatuated with her. Like, he literally is, like, in love with her. So, I mean, I do see exactly where he would sell everybody short, including the Horde, just to make sure Sylvanas is okay in the end. So, yeah. Oof. No, you do make a very good point on that. My God.
So, I agree with you that he doesn't care about the Horde, he just cares about Sylvanas. But I do wonder how he knows what he does about the Desolate Council, and I feel like on a moral standpoint, he might not agree with Sylvanas, and maybe he does actually agree with the Desolate Council. And despite this, maybe he's conflicted, because it seems as though after his transformation in Dark Mirror, it did have an effect on his personality in a way, in that he's almost kind of lost himself. Grix. The best love story of 2018. Yeah. Malfurion dies, so Sylvanas and Nathanos take their place.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, let's go into our intermission, guys. It's going to be about 15 minutes, so feel free to, go to the washroom, get some snacks, whatever. We're going to be playing a passage from Tides of War, Jaina Proudmoore Tides of War by Christie Golden. Basically, it's an extract from Garrosh giving a speech. He's assembled all the Horde leaders together, and he tells them of his plans to take Theramore and all of Kalimdor. And we can see exactly how each of the Horde leaders react, and I think that's really important to revisit going forward, because it shows, at least a few years ago, what those Horde leaders thought about his plan to eliminate all the Night Elves from Kalimdor and push them over to Eastern Kingdom. So we'll play that, and we'll be back with you guys in a bit to talk about the burning of Teldrassil.
Garrosh smiled around his tusks, nodding approvingly as he made his way to his throne, then raised his arms and called for silence. "You do not disappoint me," he said. "You are the finest representatives of your races, the leaders, the generals, and that is why I called you here." He settled himself in his throne, waving to indicate that the assembled crowd, too, could sit. "There is a menace that has been present for too long, which we must now root out without mercy. A threat that has challenged us for years, to which we have, until recently, turned a blind eye in the mistaken notion that tolerance of a little shame will do no harm to the mighty Horde. I have said, and say again, any shame is a great shame. Any injury is a great injury, and we will endure it no longer." A chill crept over Bane. He thought of Eitrig's reaction to his earlier inquiry. Bane had half suspected what Garrosh wished to say when the order was given for the Horde leaders to congregate. He had hoped he was wrong. The orc continued. "We have a destiny to fulfill, and there is an obstacle to that destiny, one that we must crush beneath our feet like the insignificant insect it truly is. For far too long, Nay, even a moment would be too long. The Alliance pests, not content with their stranglehold over the Eastern Kingdoms, have wormed their ways into our lands, our territory, into Kalimdor.
Bane closed his eyes briefly, pained.
Chipping away at our resources and sullying the very earth with their presence. They are crippling us, preventing us from growing, from reaching the heights that I know we are capable of achieving. For I believe in my heart that it is not our fate to bow and scrape and sue for peace before the Alliance. It is our right to dominate and control this land of Kalimdor. It is ours, and we will claim it as such.
Garrosh's orcs roared in approval. Most of them, anyway. Those who stood with the Korkron and the Blackrock orc. Some murmured quietly to themselves. Many Horde members followed the Korkron's example, some bellowing with the same enthusiasm, others, Bane noted, with far less gusto. Bane himself remained seated. A very few of his own Tauren applauded and stamped their hooves on the earth. The Tauren had not been untouched by the recent changes. The Alliance, expanding from Northwatch Hold under false information that the Tauren were planning an attack, had razed Camp Tarajo. The only residents it now had were looters. Many Tauren died in the battle. Others fled to Vendetta Point, where they sporadically attacked Northwatch Hold scouts, or to Camp Unafe, the camp of refuge. In response to the aggression, Bane did what he felt was best to keep his people safe. The road to Mulgore had once been open. Now, what had been dubbed the Great Gate shut out any possibility of a massive Alliance incursion. Most Tauren were content with the erection of the gate and did not burn for revenge. Others were still aching from the attack. He could not condemn these people. Bane did not rule with a tight grasp. The Tauren followed him willingly and with love, perhaps mostly out of respect for his father, but with openness in their hearts nonetheless. Those who disagreed with Bane's decisions, like many Grim Totem, or the Tauren who chose to strike back at the Alliance from Vendetta Point, were expelled from Thunderbluff, but otherwise suffered no repercussions. He returned his thoughts to the present as the cheering died down and Garrosh resumed.
To that end, it is my intent to lead the Horde on a mission that will restore us to our rightful path.
He paused, looking over the sea of faces, drawing out the moment.
Our first target will be Northwatch Hold. We will raze it, and once we have reclaimed that land as ours, we will move on to the next step. Theramore!
Bane did not recall getting to his hooves, but suddenly he was standing. He was not alone. There was cheering, of course, but hard on its heels were cries of protest.
War Chief! The Lady Jaina is too powerful, came a voice.
It sounded like a Forsaken.
She has been passive and quiet. Rouse her and we will have war on our hands, a war we are not prepared to fight. She has behaved with fairness time and again, when she could have responded with force or deceit,
Bane shouted.
Her diplomatic efforts and her decision to work with War Chief Thrall have saved countless lives. To storm her realm with no provocation does not give honor to the Horde, and it is foolish besides.
There were many murmurs of agreement. Other Alliance leaders were far less favored, and the Lady Jaina had those who respected her among the Horde. Bane was heartened to hear the murmurs, but Garrosh's next words plunged the Tauren back into despair.
First, Garrosh snapped, Thrall has given leadership of the Horde to me. Whatever he did or did not do means nothing now. I am the War Chief, to whom you have all sworn loyalty. My decisions are what matter. And those of you who condemn my plan do not even know what it entails. Be silent and listen.
The muttering died down, but not all of those who had risen took their seats.
You respond to this as if the conquest of Theramore were the goal. I tell you now, it is only the beginning. I do not speak solely of destroying the human foothold in Kalimdor. I speak also, and even more vigorously, of the Night Elves. Let them flee to the eastern kingdoms as we crush their cities and take their resources." "Drive them all out?" said Vol'jin, baffled. "They've been here longer than we have, and we try something like that. The Alliance be over us like bees on the honey. You'd just be giving them the excuse they'd been looking for."
Garrosh turned slowly to the leader of the Darkspear trolls. Inwardly, Bane winced. Vol'jin had been among the most outspoken of Garrosh's critics after the death of Cairn. There was little love lost between the troll and orc leaders. Garrosh had forced the Darkspears into Orgrimmar's slums. Outraged at the insult, Vol'jin had ordered the trolls to leave Orgrimmar altogether. Now, the Darkspear leader came to the city only when summoned.
"My soul is sick of the back and forth in Ashen Vale that has gone on nearly since we set foot in this world," growled Garrosh. Bane knew the orc was still smarting from the latest defeat there at the hands of Varian Rin. "And I am even more sickened by our own blindness to what we should and must do. The Night Elves claim compassion and wisdom, yet they murder us when we harvest a few trees that would provide life-giving shelter. The Night Elves have lived here long enough. Let them now linger only as a bad memory. It is the Horde's hour to reign on this continent, and reign we shall. This is why Theramore is key. Do you not understand?" Garrosh stared at the Horde members as if they were small children. "We crush Theramore. We stop the potential of Alliance reinforcements from the south. And then we give the Night Elves their due."
"War Chief!" The voice was female, at once both musical and cold. Sylvanas Windrunner, former High Elf Ranger General and now the leader of the Forsaken, rose and gazed at Garrosh with intense, glowing eyes. "The Alliance may indeed not send reinforcements, not at once, at least. They will turn and vent their wrath instead upon those of us in the Eastern Kingdoms, my people and the Sindori." She looked at Lorthamar almost imploringly. The Blood Elf leader's face remained impassive. "Varian will march on my borders and destroy us." The comment was addressed to Garrosh, but she continued to stare at Lorthamar. Bane felt for her. She was hoping for support from one who might reasonably be expected to give it, and finding none.
"War Chief, a word?"
It was Eitrig, turning with the respect he owed to his leader.
"I've heard from you already, my advisor," said Garrosh. "We have not," Bane stated. "Eitrig was friend to my father and advisor to Thrall. He knows the Alliance in a way few do. Surely you do not object to the rest of us hearing what such a wise elder has to say."
The look that Garrosh shot Bane could have melted stone. The Tauren met the gaze with deceptive placidness. Nonetheless, the orc nodded to Eitrig.
"You may speak," he said curtly. "It is true that the Horde has done much to recover from the cataclysm," Eitrig began. "And it has been under your leadership, War Chief Garrosh. You are right. Yours is the title, yours are the decisions, but yours also is the responsibility. Think for a moment about the consequences of this choice. The Night Elves will be gone, the Alliance will be afraid to attack, and Kalimdor will belong to the Horde. Those will be the consequences, Elder."
Garrosh uttered the word, not with respect, but almost with contempt. Bane noticed that 2 or 3 orcs frowned at the war chief's tone of voice, and were listening intently to Eitrig. Eitrig shook his head.
"No," he said. "That is a hope. You hope to begin claiming this continent as ours. And you might. It would also begin a war that would involve armies from all over this world, Horde and Alliance, locked in a combat that would take lives and drain resources. Have we not suffered through enough of those costs? The orcs who had been paying close attention now started nodding. Vane recognized one of them as a shopkeeper here in Orgrimmar. Another, surprisingly, was one of the guards, though not a member of the elite Corcron. "Costs!" said a slightly screechy voice. "I hadn't heard War Chief Garrosh mention costs, friendy Trig." It was, of course, Trade Prince Scallywix. He was standing, not that anyone could tell. The crown of his top hat was all that could be seen of him, but it bobbed up and down animatedly with his speech. "What I hear is talk of profit for everyone. Why not expand, taking the resources of our enemies and driving them away at the same time? Even war is good business if you go about it properly." Vane had had enough. The greedy, self-absorbed goblin's quip about the blood of heroes and foes alike being spilled for profit pushed Bane's anger past prudent silence.
"Garrosh,"
he said,
"there is none here who can say that I do not love the Horde, nor any who can say that I do not honor your title."
Garrosh did not speak. He well knew that he had not come to Bane's aid when it was needed, and yet the Tauren still had acknowledged him as war chief. Bane had even saved Garrosh's life once. The orc made no attempt to silence Bane. Yet,
"I know this lady. You do not. She has worked tirelessly for peace, knowing well that we are not monsters, but people, like the people who compose the Alliance."
his sharp eyes scanned the crowd, and any rabble-rousers who might have been tempted to protest his labeling humans, night elves, dwarves, Draenei, Worgen, and gnomes as people wisely held their tongues.
"I have received aid and shelter in her home. She helped me when even members of the Horde would not. She does not deserve this treachery, this—"
"Bane, bloodhuff!" snarled Garrosh, closing the distance between himself and the Tauren High Chieftain in a few strides. Bane towered over him, but Garrosh was not cowed.
"If you do not wish to share your father's fate, I would advise you to watch what you say." "You mean dying betrayed?"
Bane shot back. Garrosh roared. Archdruid Hamuel Runetotem stepped forward at the same time as Eitrig. But another interposed himself between Bane and Garrosh, the Blackrock orc. He did not touch Bane, but the Tauren could almost feel the fire of the other's banked rage churning. The gray-skinned orc's eyes glittered, their coldness not tempering the heat of his anger, but rather augmenting it. And Bane felt a prickle of unease. Who was this orc?
"Malkarok," said Garrosh. "Step down."
For what seemed an eternity, the Blackrock orc did not move. Bane had no desire for a confrontation, not here, not now. Attacking Garrosh, or this gray-skinned warrior who was clearly appointed specifically to defend him, would only further aggravate the young warchief and make him even more disinclined to listen to reason. At last, expelling air from his nostrils in a snort of contempt, Malkarok did as he was told. Garrosh moved forward, shoving his face up toward Bane's.
"This is not a time for peace. The time for war has come. It is long overdue. Your own people have suffered from the expansion of the Alliance into your territory, unprovoked. If anyone should wish to destroy at the very least Northwatch Hold, it should be the Tauren."
Hey guys, oh, my cat says hello too. Apparently, we are back. So I will just take a second here to show you guys the art that we're going to be discussing. We've got two pieces, basically depicting right before the tree burns and as it's burning. The blue one is actually called Approach to Teldrassil, and then the orange one is called Teldrassil Burns. Okay, so let's start off by talking about the blue one, as my cat interrupts me. Okay, so basically, the main thing that I wanted to start off by pointing out is that, as you can see from the blue art, actually, let me just, I can pull it up on the screen here instead of those Elegy arts. Okay, that's better. So from the blue one, you can kind of see that there's fire coming out from the bottom of the screen. Basically the southernmost end of the picture, it's like you can see the fire already starting, like it's about to be launched at the tree or something, potentially. Of course, that could just be bodies burning from the battle which ensued there on Darkshore. It's a bit unclear, but I'm willing to say that it seems like the projectile has been sent off from Darkshore towards the tree. What did you guys think?
I'm not 100% on it coming from Darkshore. I think it could very well have something to do with the boats that are in the foreground underneath the tree, of which one of them, at least to me, looks like it's Kultiran. And from my time in the Alpha, the Kultirans and their boats are very strange. Sorry about that. And the reason why I say they're very strange is that there's definitely some form of like old god or a Sharan influence there. So it could very well be that that's where the projectiles come from, is that Kultiran ship.
If only my cat weren't standing right in front of my monitor where I'm trying to look at the art. But yeah, I definitely agree that the ships are an important piece to point out as well. Do you guys think that this is some kind of Azeroth explosion? How do you think that they managed to light up the tree so quickly? Because it almost seems as though right in front of Sylvanas, all of a sudden the tree is just engulfed in flames. At least that's what I'm getting from the art. Because you see, 1 second they're just looking at the tree, the next second she's standing there and it's like burning.
Right. Another thing that I've noticed too with it burning is the leaves aren't exactly singed off. It's like it's starting right from the epicenter of the actual tree, like within the trunk, within the burrows of it. Because you would, with something like that, like a napalm and such things, leaves usually get singed pretty darn quick. So that's what's bugging me about that too, is that it's literally happening right in the moment.
Yeah, I've thought that maybe the fire actually started in Darnassus. It's the only place, or maybe Dolinar, which is the other little tiny town. You've got Shadowglen, Dolinar, and Darnassus, and my thoughts are that like it may have started actually in Darnassus, possibly in the Temple of Elune.
Why the Temple of Elune specifically?
Well, if it has something to do with the Kultiran ship, and we know that the Kultirans worship something known as the Tide Mother, which we think might actually be Ashara. In the course of like sort of going around the world and having a look at things, the various temples of Elune have been slowly being corrupted by Ashara and her followers, so the old gods. I wouldn't be surprised if some followers of Ashara have managed to actually get into that temple and desecrate it. And the only thing that I can think of that would be able to like rip down the final temple of Elune would be fire.
I totally agree with that.
That's a good point. That didn't even occur to me. Now, if the fire did start from within the tree, then does that mean it is just a Twilight's Hammer plot, and that perhaps there's alliance members within the tree who started the fire, who are working against them, the alliance, or do you think the horde actually sailed their boats over there and went up, or what are you thinking?
I find it very hard to scale that tree. That tree is gigantic. I find it very unlikely unless, for instance, you're a swift rogue or assassin of some sort to scale a tree like that. Or, I mean, it would take a lot to do that with boats, and then having enough of force of like getting like flying mounts up to that area, and then being meted by you're gonna get an arsenal of bows and arrows coming at you all at once, these archers. So I mean, it's going to be very hard to get up there. I feel like it may have been like something stasis where they're paying attention to whatever's down at the ground, but in the end, it's an inside job. And I really feel like with the new form of Greymane's druids being there and whatnot, I feel like there's an inside job with Matthias Shaw and such with Greymane. And not essentially Greymane being the fault of it. It's being swayed towards it. Because you can see in that trailer where Matthias Shaw and Greymane talk, they're talking as if they're buddies, but not into a plot of a whole entire thing. So I feel like he's possibly being swayed by a number of different people.
Yeah, it definitely has to have been an inside job. The more you think about the tree, the more you think about how impossible it is, or well, not impossible, but how hard it is for a horde to get in there. One of the only ways you can get in there, if you're Alliance, you can go through the teleporter that's at Rethrillian Village at the very foot of the tree. But if you're Horde, you have to fly up, and like Vaski said, it's a really far way up. Like, you have to fly for a very long time to get up to the top. But not only that, when you're in there, you're met with ancients. So like the Ancients of War. You met with the Sentinels. You met with Hippogriff riders. You met with Sentinels riding around on their like night sabers. You've got the Priestesses of Elune. You've got like an entire army that is in there. And a lot of them have stealth detection. Like, it's very, very hard for Horde players to, or for a Horde person at the very least, to get in there, and especially get into the Temple of Elune. So to me, it almost feels like this has to have been an inside job. Like, it just absolutely has to have been.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And it seems as though, why are the Horde leaders the only ones there? Why are they standing there on Darkshore? I feel like exactly what you said. There's this huge battle that must occur on Darkshore. Darkshore is a location, apparently, where a lot of Azerite is springing up through the ground. And if that's what they're fighting over, it doesn't seem to me that the Horde are there to destroy Teldrassil. Probably that is just one massive distraction, and then the tree just goes up from within, or from a boat, or something of that nature.
The other thing to note is, I mean, it's not always a good representation in the art to the game, but I went and I've spent a good many hours, like, sort of looking at the shoreline of Darkshore, what you can see from the shore of Darkshore, and there's only 2 spots in the entire shore that you can actually get a good vision of Teldrassil. One is standing on the dock, up in the Horde camp where the trolls are being attacked by the Night Elves. Funnily enough, the trolls are being attacked by the Night Elves just simply because they're trolls. I don't think that's very fair, but again, that's the Night Elves versus the trolls thing. And the second spot where you can see it is the new camp, Lordaeron, the new Night Elf camp, which took the spot of Orbadine in Darkshore when the Cataclysm hit. I think you're able to see the Teldrassil from Orbidine, but I'm not 100% on that because of how the wharf was. It was a very long wharf. So at the very end of that, you would have been able to see the tree. But since that was wrecked, you can't now. So it seems that there's only 2 spots where Sylvanas could be standing. And one's an Alliance camp and the other one's a Horde camp. And I feel like the place that she's standing at is the Horde camp.
I agree because of where you can see Ratharan located. I'm assuming that's where those boats are gathered, so it would actually be further down Darkshore, like towards Winter Spring, where they're looking.
Where that originally where that troll camp was at, but going up into the hills. Is that where you're talking about?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, the Troll Reef camp.
That's why I agree too, especially with how it dips down into that large plain of sand as well there. That makes the total most sense because that's where most of the beach is at as well too for beach range.
And you know, this might not be relevant, but back in Elegy, the Forsaken was taunting the Sentinel about trolls. The Forsaken says to her something like, yeah, one of our trolls already has like the Night Elf Commander's ears around his necklace or something like that. And that if this is all just old god deceit being sowed, maybe he's setting them up to be mad at the trolls as well.
It's definitely a possibility since I mentioned the troll camp. It's the Sentinels that are actually attacking that area, and they take in a war of an Ancient of War up there as well, and you just go and obliterate their camp for really no reason, as far as I could see, as a Horde player. I mean, if the Alliance like want to fill me in, that's okay. I mean, the quest is an Alliance quest, but yeah, it never really made much sense to me as to why they were attacking the trolls in their camp. I mean, the Horde were like mining their ruins, and there are a few temples into the ground nearby as well. But it just seemed really strange to me.
The only thing you actually get in terms of insight for the Alliance is like, oh, we've been warring over this territory for a long time, and the trolls keep kidnapping our soldiers, so you better go and like free them or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's like all that really happens there.
Yeah, so I mean, I thought that might explain that quest alone. I thought might be the reason why we see so much like devastation in the area surrounding it. But yeah, I don't know. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that when the artwork goes from the blue tree to the tree on fire, where's Nathanos and where's like Sorfang?
And where's Bane in either of these?
Yeah, they just straight up disappear, much like that blood elf. They just whoosh, vanish.
Do you think it could be that Bane actually wasn't brought along for this conquest and he's actually running like the city for everyone? Like,
he would be probably my pick for leaving behind, especially if you might do something dicey. Sorfang might go along with it if it meant that, you know, honor was like being established and, you know, all that sort of stuff, like they were doing it for an honorable reason. But Bane doesn't really suit. He doesn't really strike me as the type of person to be in on it just for honor. I think he would be very questioning the situation all the time, because he's not one really for war. He would much prefer everyone to sort of like be peaceful.
okay.
I agree. And I would think if he ended up being there and being present for that happening, I think he would have a bit of a meltdown. I think that would be like the kicker for him and a lot of people witnessing something like that.
So if Bane is left behind, then that just leaves the question, like, where does Sarfang and Nathanos go at this point? And Sylvanas is just left there to watch. It doesn't seem like any boat has come to pick them up or anything. What were you going to say, Lhok?
Oh, I was just going to mention that Bane also has the most ties to the Alliance leaders. So that could also be another reason why he's left out of the war, because you wouldn't want someone who you'd have to like sort of answer 50 million questions as to why something's being done, and also have them knowing that they have had good dealings with and may harbor some feelings for the enemy leaders.
Yeah, and maybe it's convenient for the storyline too if Bane isn't there, considering we're speculating Malfurion has already died by this point. The amount of implications it would raise of them both being like basically that both of their people had a neutral party together, the Tauren druids and the Night Elven druids. I mean, I know Bane's not a druid, but like, just the fact that there would be like that level of common ground, and that Malfurion's death, he knows, would also impact his people.
Definitely.
Is there a chance that like Nathanos and Sarfang have just like immediately reacted, and that they're like, we have to do X, and then they go to do said thing, and Sylvanas is just stunned, and she just hasn't moved yet? Could that be what's going on?
The thing is, I would feel, because since she's so tied into with the Highborn and the Night Elves, and that is technically her lineage, I feel like with her, even with her soul being ripped apart and being a banshee, you're still going to stand there stunned seeing your heritage being burned in front of you. I would think that would trigger something in you, even being a banshee, being like, why would such a thing happen like this? And that's my opinion. I don't see her ever burning a tree or doing something like that to her old form of lineage. And with Sarafang and Nathanos and them, I think honestly, they've seen enough war, they've gone at enough that they would be able to be like, okay, this is the next step that needs to be done. Maybe then going and helping out people. Maybe there's other people that are injured within the Horde, and gathering their forces and getting the fuck out of there.
It's weird because it seems like in the blue one, there's a boat that's just about to dock, and then in the orange one, it has docked. So it seems like those boats like just arrived, and that people probably haven't even really left the boats yet. I'm wondering if they think the battle's over, and whatever happened, everything around them is burning. Whatever happened on Darkshore, they're just like, holy crap, this just happened. And maybe they're deciding what to do next. Now, what I think is important is I'm thinking there's a reason why Sylvanas is alone when the tree goes up. I think that this is going to be an important plot point where Sarfang and Nathanos don't know where Sylvanas was when it happened, and that maybe Sylvanas was the only one actually there on the shore looking at the tree when it went up. Like maybe Sarfang and Nathanos have to be out of the picture so that this confusing plot of Sylvanas being framed makes sense. Like, wouldn't the Twilight's cultists try and get Nathanos and Sarfang away? So that, how are they going to accomplish that? So that Sylvanas is the only one who really knows her own innocence in that way.
Yeah, if Nathanos and Sorfang are not there and then the tree goes up, it's going to be very difficult for Sylvanas to actually like explain anything to them. It does seem like they are trying to solo or single out Sylvanas in and sort of make it implicit that she was like part of it, or imply, sorry, that she was part of what was going down.
Now, another thing that I like to point out too is with her stance in this, is when as soon as that flame goes up, she has a stance of her legs are apart. That's a stance of like grounding yourself and either taking a fight or a flight stance. So that's another
Yeah.
thing that I found very interesting, is that she is literally grounding herself in the moment and really like taking it in of what's happening and what needs to be done, because she can either fight or flight in this situation.
I agree. Like I feel like that's a shocked reaction. She's like, oh my god.
Yes, definitely. I think that she's shocked. I'm not.
Now, those ships do have red flags, red sails, I should say. What do you think that's about? Do you think they sent some people over to Darnassus? Or do you think that's more Twilight Hammer nonsense?
Me, with considering with the red flag, I think there is some horde ships involved in there, but I think they're so. Bravo mentioned it in our stream just now, saying that there's not enough ships to be considered a fleet to make an attack, and a damn well damning attack on that kind of tree. You're like, that amount of ships is not going to harbor enough to do damage on a tree like that. So was there a consideration of a meeting coming again with the Horde and the Alliance, trying to figure out what's going on with the defeat of the Legion, etc., of what's to come, whatnot? I mean, there's even like one that's a form of a pirate ship that Gizmo's even saying as well too. So it's just like,
Yeah, I mean, we have to take into consideration that the events in Elegy and A Good War aren't on the same day as the burning of Teldrassil, right? So they could have had a day, like a week-long battle on Darkshore, and the battle's finally concluded, and the Horde have camps set up on Darkshore, and, you know, they're all battled out, neither of them are fighting anymore. What if, at this point, the Alliance leaders have come to Darnassus, or somebody, maybe we're anticipating, you know, that other main characters might die in this fire. If other people have come to Teldrassil, what if they've said, like, I don't know what's happening, like, this has gone too far, we need to talk this out, like, maybe they call for a ceasefire or something. I don't know, but I'm just trying to justify for myself why the Horde would have boats going there, you know what I mean?
I don't think, like I said before, I don't think that boat, the really big one, is pirates. I think they're Kulterians. Like, Kulterians definitely could be pirates, but I think it's a Kulterian ship. I do think the Kulterian ships would have some pretty impressive firepower that they could actually, like, you know, potentially bring down the tree. I think I counted 24 or 26 guns on the Kulterian ships. So that's a surprising large amount of firepower that particular ships have. They are certainly big enough to fit that boat description in the bottom, because they're just absolutely massive.
I agree. I think that the massive ship has got to be either Zandalari or Kultiran. It makes more sense to be Kultiran, but then the question is, why are their sails red? Maybe it's just the regular ships that usually are around that area, that just go between Stormwind and Darnassus, that go to the Exodar. Maybe there's just an addition of a Kultiran ship, and you know, and the other ones are just the regular ones. Maybe it's not Horde sails, and that it's just the lighting of the picture that makes them appear red.
Yeah, in the picture I've got here, I've just like zoomed in on the bottom. One ship does appear to be a Horde ship. It's got the spikes and stuff on the front, but it's only a small war skiff. The bigger of the two does look to be more like a Kulterian type. Unless the Horde have a big ship like that, I don't really see how or why they would. The closest ones in the fleet of the Horde would be the big dreadnought ships that the Forsaken have, but they don't have spikes around it. Definitely the one with the white sails that's pulled up into the docks. That's a merchant transport ship for the humans. If I'm mistaken, there are alliance ships that do look like the one that's in the middle. They're mostly night elf ones, though. But to me, it doesn't really look like a night elf ship. But the big dreadnought one certainly does look like a Kulturian ship, even though it has ripped sails. And the sails don't really look red to me in that particular picture.
So why would there be this little tiny horde ship there?
I don't know. And that's why I'm saying it could be an alliance transport ship. But yeah, because the night elves do have sails that pop up like a fin on their boats.
Right. Do you think the Naga are going to be involved following this attack? Because I could honestly see them just like, considering we're so close to the water in Darkshore. It's odd to me that there hasn't been any Naga presence so far, or indication of Naga presence, because I think that they are heavily involved in what's happening, but maybe they just don't want to reveal themselves in that respect.
I feel like Ajar and them would immediately take advantage of that area because it's been in water for so long. There has been corruption linked into it that has seeped into ancient water beings that end up beaching themselves on Darkshore and then causing that corruption with other animal life, then eating upon it, and then so forth, of that chain reaction happening. I feel Ajar would definitely, especially with Naga being so present along the Dark Shore, heading into Ajar, going to Black Fathom Deeps, that's prime designated spot to get to your Agenia, get relics, because they are big on relics, as we've seen through the ages. So I feel like that would be prime capitalist spot for them to go over and try to capitalize on the situation.
And then why would a Kulturian ship be there? Do you guys think that Jaina's already basically shown up in the embassy and offered to speak with Anduin and all that stuff that's supposed to happen? Because we know she's there for the battle for Lordaeron, and that's going to be the opening scenario of the expansion. So that's clearly not, she's clearly shown up before that. It almost seems as though she's going to make an appearance before the end of Legion, because she's already there in the first instance of BFA. So if she's making an appearance in Legion, the question then is it going to be before or after the events with the tree?
I think it's probably around the same time as the tree.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you that on Lhok, for sure.
Based on sort of like the hints and stuff that I've seen in Alpha, I think that possibly it's not really Jaina that sends the boat. I think it's Lady Ashvane, and I think that, or maybe even a Waycrest. I haven't got into Drusvar as deeply as I'd like to because it scares me. But definitely Lady Ashvane, and the Ashvanes do have motives for sort of screwing up things. They don't particularly like the Alliance. They don't particularly like Jaina. So I could definitely see them outfitting a boat and going and possibly like attacking Teldrassil. And I can see the corruption, like the corruptive forces of like Ashara and stuff like that being or having a hand at the back of that. And I do know that Ashvanes dabble with Azerite, so they could very well use that to attack the tree.
Do you think the Kulturians might have gone to Darkshore to acquire Azerite, and that they might have been there already?
It's very possible, yes. the Ashvanes are the ones that are causing a whole bunch of like problems in Alpha. From what I've seen so far, they're the ones that have the slavers go out and raid things. So it is very possible that they sort of stumbled upon Teldrassil with the large Azeroth stockpiles and sort of like did some horrible things there.
Thank you for following. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Culturians are already part of the situation, and they might already have a presence on Kalimdor before this all even goes down. And that might be why Jaina shows up. Like, what if she had no intention of showing up, but basically let's say the Waycrest or the Ashvanes, I'm not sure what exactly their names are because I don't have Alpha, but let's say they show up, right? And they actually potentially send like people to go acquire the Azurite that's coming out of Darkshore, and it's at that point when Jaina's like, okay, I need to go talk to the Alliance, and she it seems like maybe she's stolen a ship or something, because when she gets back to Kultiras, they're not happy with her, right? But she goes directly to Stormwind and talks to Anduin, so I feel like maybe that's propelled by whatever the Kultirians have done and why this ship is there at Darnassus.
Yeah, so with that in mind, do we think that Lady Ashvane could possibly force like you were saying, force Jaina's hands to have to go to the Alliance to ask them to sort of get rid of them? Because I know the Ashvanes are trying to, and the Waycrests are trying to dispose of the Proudmoore family. They don't want the Proudmoores to be ruling over Kultiras. I don't really know much about the Waycrests, but I do know from the RPG, the Waycrest family is mentioned as the friends of Jaina's brother. So there could be something there as well.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting too, because if Jaina's brother was the leader of the Lost Fleet, who potentially were taken by Naga, let's say, I wouldn't be surprised if they do end up using Jaina's brother in the X-Pack, considering that they already made a reference to the RPG by calling the Waycrest Waycrest. Never been mentioned in any other lore other than the RPG, right? So
Yeah.
if he does end up being some kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, like dead sailor fleet like thing, that would be so cool.
Yeah, the Lost Third Fleet of Kultiras, the one that was captained by Jaina's brother, was also carrying a bunch of relics. One of them being the Isle of Palath, which was the one that cursed those sailors in the wetlands. So I kind of am wondering if they had any other relics that they weren't supposed to, and where these relics were going. Because the cursed eye is like pretty horrific. Like with the upgraded quest, you go in and you do the same quest as what you did in vanilla. But when you go to hand it into the dwarf, he's just like, you don't want to know what you actually handed in. Like you were mind controlled, you were brought in by the ghost, you see the ghost, you go and do his quest, you come back, and you could swear that the ghost is there, but he's disappeared, and then you go and talk to the dwarven priest, and like he's like, that guy's been dead for a long time, I'm not sure why you're seeing him, and what you've given me in this box you don't want to know about. And that's sort of where the quest ends. And I've always wondered, what exactly did I pick up in that box? Like, it's all got to do with the third fleet of Kultiras, and I wonder if that's going to sort of make an appearance in Kultiras.
In vanilla, did the quest stop at the dwarven priest, or did he tell you to bring it to Theramore?
I can't really remember that much. I know you could keep the orb if you wanted to, but yeah, I think you're right. I think you might have had to take it to Theramore.
Because that's sketchy,
Yeah.
considering it was Jaina's brother's fleet and then you're bringing it to Theramore.
I'm pretty sure back in Vanilla you did bring it to Theramore, and then once Cataclysm came around, it stopped right at that dwarf, and that was it.
Right, because of Theramore. Makes sense.
Right. But I also remember too what she was saying. You got to keep it if you wanted to. Was it a neck piece that you could do? It was like a neck piece you can actually have or something as the reward.
It was an offhand.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And it swirled. It didn't have purple swirls emanating off it, and it looked like the red like eye orb or whatever. It's kind of orangey. Yeah.
It was like a shadowy kind of orb. Yeah, it had like a red swirl, but it was like a black orb, and it was a one hand. It was like I said, it was an offhand.
Interesting.
Which is definitely a reference to the Palantir, right? Being the Eye of Paleth. I don't know, that's what I always thought.
It's possible. But yes, so I wonder if he will, Jaina's brother will make an appearance in this X-Pack as well.
Oh, he definitely will. Good thing that Gizmo, now that we're on that conversation with Jaina's brother, is that there's supposedly what do you call it? Where does it even say it? Did this thing go away?
Wait, I'm confused about what Gizmo's saying. Does Jaina have two brothers now, or are you saying like the brother who went missing is now back?
Because that would be something if the other brother that was missing is now back. That would be what?
That would be sketchy.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, then that's for sure he's going to be in an amalgamated form of something.
Yes, I'm talking about Thandred, I think his name is. Thandred Proudmoore. He was the captain of the Third Fleet, I believe. And he went missing on one of his missions in Warcraft 2 or 3. Can't remember.
I think it was 3. I'm pretty sure it was 3.
Oh wow, so this is a lot more complicated than I thought. That's funny though, but they make a quip about him not being canon, because people kept saying like, yeah, Jaina's brother's been written out of the story. That's RPG lore. That's not legit.
Well, guess what? It's legitness.
Well, it still might not be, and the Waycrafts might be, but yeah. I always thought that he was canon, like just straight up. I always thought he was canon. Because he has a pretty cool story.
Well, like according to the data mine broadcast lines, though, they make it, or it might even be. I think it's actually in the alpha itself, even that they say like, you know, that bloke over there told me that I wasn't canon. Well, obviously I'm a mariner, not a canon. And it's like, oh, Blizzard, why?
Yeah, I bet he's a Dreadlord, David. That'd be hilarious. Not really. I'd die a little on the inside if they wanted to go through a storyline like that.
I mean, he doesn't even have to be a Dreadlord to be shady, though. That's the thing, right? With all of those Kulturans that we saw, like, in Azuna that were being subjugated by the Naga, and the fact, like, in the Eye of Azara, little island with all the sunken Kulturan ships and whatever else, it's, like, the Kulturans are already shady enough, like, working with Azara and the Tide Mother and all the N'Zoth, right?
Definitely. The thing that got me was the thing that actually filled me with a whole bunch of dread was I was doing the quests. And I'm like, okay, this is like not really cool. Like they're doing some pretty horrible things. This is in Storm Song Valley. And we get up to the end. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to release the souls at the sea shrine, and it's a giant octopus with a purple gem in the middle of it. And so he rings his little bell, and the spirits go off. He's like, oh, the spirits go through the shrine of the storms, which is the shrine of the Tide Mother. And her whispers were gentle at first, but now they've become more violent and more like urging us to do some horrible things. I'm like, that doesn't sound very good at all. And then he goes on to say that those spirits that he sent off empower their ships and, like, you know, have things to do with their ships. I'm like, this is really not very good.
Vaski, have you had a chance to play any of the human side of the alpha yet?
No, because I am a dirty, filthy horde, and I am pretty keen on sticking with that. I will eventually switch over on the alpha side to get a taste of it, because I do really want to see the whole entire Kulturian story background, because it delves super deep into this very old druidic Celtic amalgamations of how they use trees and earth and everything, and I just can't wait to see how they do that old pagan stuff. So that's what I'm excited for. I will definitely be going to see that.
That's fair. But, you know, from what I've seen of both storylines, it really doesn't seem like neither the Zandalari nor the Kulturians have a reason to be engaging in this Alliance Horde conflict. Like, it's so beyond them. Like, it has nothing to do with them. It's very strange how they're being brought into the fold specifically for this war. And it just honestly screams like old god ploy, right?
Yes and no. The Zandalari have probably more reason to ally with the Horde than the Kulturians do with the Alliance. As you play through the Zandalari side of things, you can see that the Blood Trolls have got a massive hold of Zandalar Island. You've got Lady Ashvane and her crew setting up camps along the coast. You've got things going wrong in Vol'dun. You've with the snakes. So the Zandalari have quite a lot of reasons why they would like some extra land forces, as well as the Horde would like their ships. Kultiris, on the other hand, it doesn't really, from what I've played so far, it doesn't really seem like the sort of trade-off is the same. You've got Jaina, who is wanting the help from the Alliance, from what I gathered, because her ancestral home is under attack, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's all that they're sort of dragging the Kulturians in with. And that's probably why the other Kulturians don't particularly want the Proudmoores in charge anymore, because the Proudmoores seem to be very, very heavily reliant on the Alliance as opposed to themselves.
Yeah, and Jaina's the one who would really care about Teldrassil being burned. I honestly wouldn't put it past the other Kulturians not to even care. Question is though, they are druids. So does this druidism thing even have any like, does the world tree mean anything to them is what I'm trying to say? Like, how does it really work?
No. I don't. I mean, I could absolutely be wrong, and the small amount that I've played in Droswell before I got severely creeped out and ran away, it seems to be more akin to the Zandalari type druidism with blood magic and that sort of stuff, like the blood and the spirit magic seems to be where it's going with, not so much like the night elf way of druidism.
Oh yeah, it's got this almost kind of like what do you call that? Like the plague and like London kind of feel to it, with a mix of like old Celtic. It's just, it eerily reminds me, I don't know if you guys ever played Bloodborne, like out of the series who've made like Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. They made this game Bloodborne with a lot of old god stuff and a lot of paganistic kind of things, and it really reminds me of that.
Okay, so if even the Kulturian druids don't care about the world tree, then I honestly can't see any of the Kulturians caring about the world tree other than Jaina. And
No.
I've heard people been saying, I haven't gotten to this part in Tides of War yet, but apparently she says something along the lines of, what would you do if the Horde like went as far as burning a world tree, or like, what would happen if a world tree got burned down? Like, what would you do? And I think this is a line from Jaina. And it kind of comes full circle now if she's reacting to the tree being burned. I almost wonder, she must think that it was the Horde that did it. She must think that the Horde literally killed all of the Sentinels in Kalimdor. Like, Jaina must be under the impression that Sylvanas is a Garrosh 2.0. And what is that going to do to the story? Because if Jaina's there whispering in the ears of the Alliance, saying dismantle the Horde, Anduin, right? And I mean, it seemed like after War Crimes that she was kind of getting a little bit better, but if she literally sees what Sylvanas has supposedly done, and according to Very Mathras, right, his alliance in Antorus, you're blind to the darkness closing in around you. You know, when the shattered mask hangs above your hearth, only then will you know. That's saying to me, we're gonna have to literally take Lordaeron before we realize that Sylvanas was not the culprit. I think that's what that means.
I think it's going to take most of the expansion to have it be known that Sylvanas is not the culprit to a lot of things.
Although I do think she's going to do some pretty awful things, irreversible, awful things. This isn't backed up with evidence or anything. It's just like a gut feeling that I have.
But
Yeah.
is she acting that way because of her own isolation, because everyone is against her? Like, what will they push Sylvanas to do with her being blamed?
Well, isn't that basically being a Garrosh 2.0? Because you've got when Garrosh and Thrall fight, he basically says that you're the reason why I'm like this. Like, it's all your fault. Like, I didn't want this. I didn't want the war chief mantle thrust upon me. Everything that I did because I thought I was doing the right thing. So isn't that kind of, if what we think about Sylvanas is going to take place, isn't that kind of a Garrosh 2.0? Maybe without the crazy, Shah heart-eating, though.
And we've heard whispers that people keep saying Bolvar is going to be brought back into the picture with the Death Knight storylines, and how they're even referencing the Death Knight storylines in the Dynamite broadcast text. If the Lich King does come back into the picture in BFA, I'm wondering how even that is going to tie into this whole thing with Sylvanas. Is he going to reach out to her and be like, everyone's against you, I understand what it's like, or what do you guys see happening?
I kind of hope that doesn't happen. I don't think that Sylvanas would ever ally herself with the Lich King again.
I totally agree. I don't think that's going to be something that would happen once again. I think she'd rather fucking die. Sorry for my language. I think she'd rather flip and die than have to go back into with that, even with the new Lich King, etc. Because even then, that's a very questionable thing too. And that's a whole nother subject of the new Lich King and where he's going.
I think so too. But you also have to question the fact that Christie Golden is putting out a book that's literally, the entire book is just about the character development of Sylvanas. So how is she going to change between the Sylvanas we know now and by the end of the book? What's going to happen? Is that where she's going to talk to Illyria? Is she going to talk to Varisa? What kind of realization is supposed to happen in this book that pushes her to something else? Because I feel like she is going to have some kind of shift. Otherwise, why would they write a book about it? You know what I mean? Supposedly, before the storm takes place, right when the embassies first pop up, I'm pretty sure, and then it ends right before the burning at Teldrassil. So how can they have so much story that takes place during this short time, and we haven't even seen any of it in game yet? There must be something that happens,
I think Sylvanas will probably end up meeting Illyria by herself. I can't see Varisa really wanting to meet Sylvanas, especially after what happened with Garrosh in I think it's War Crimes book, where Sylvanas and Varisa want to poison Garrosh, but then Varisa backs out. So there's like that bad blood, and I can't. It's not that I can't. I could definitely see Varisa trying to turn Illyria against Sylvanas, so she feels absolutely alone with everything. She could like do some majorly bad things. How they would go about changing her personality, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that's what or why she reached out to Helia, like we saw in Legion. But yeah, as far as changing her personality, I'd have to sit and wait for the book to come out to see where she's going to go.
Right. Now, another point, I haven't heard many people talk about it with Illyria and Sylvanas coming together. Now that Illyria is taken in the Void, if you really think about it, the Banshee Queen is not too far off from Illyria. They're kind of becoming almost on a parallel line of within their power and things. So, I mean, what can we see from that? Maybe something comes out of that. I mean, there's a lot. She's seen darkness. She sees darkness. There's a whole lot of things going on, and maybe more truths will come out, and where they're able to see past through the void and seeing absolute truth out of that. I've always been interested in that because they are becoming on a parallel line where one is Horde, one is Alliance. What if it's the defining factor that's going to bring the two factions together in all of this?
Yeah, I think Illyria and Sylvanas have to work together at some point. It just makes sense the way that they've, Illyria understands the cold, she understands the dark, same as Sylvanas. It's not going to be quick, but eventually, I think that would be really neat if that is what propels the two factions working together, considering how incredibly alliance biased I personally think Illyria is.
Yeah, speaking of that, you do actually see Illyria in the Lordaeron battle. You don't see Terrellian, you don't see Tyrande, you don't see Malfurion. I thought it interesting that you don't see Terrellian there. But going back to it before, the meeting would have to be before that, and they might have had a falling out. Maybe that's what the tree is. Like they go to meet, and then the tree goes up in ashes, and then that's that. Like Illyria's just like not going to give you another second chance. You blew up a world tree. I'm done. So yeah, it's interesting that Illyria is at the Battle of Lordaeron and Terrellian is not. Is that something that's going to like happen in between the burning of the tree, or maybe Sylvanas kills Terrellian? I don't know.
Well, everyone's really quick to jump to Terrellian being dead, and that why he's not there. But if before the storm there are events that carry out between Illyria and Sylvanas, then it could explain why ever he's not there. But you have to remember that Illyria arrives at the Battle for Lordaeron through a void portal, and she brings Mekatork with her in through this portal. And the portal must be from somewhere, I feel like somewhere far-ish away, because she brings in all of these spider tanks, those gnomish engineering devices, and Terrellian wouldn't have been able to go through a void portal with her. So is it possible that her and Terrellian were together wherever before she teleported, and then he just couldn't teleport with her?
Yeah, no, that's possible.
That's possible too, for sure.
I definitely think it's making it seem like he died, but if everyone really expects him to die, what if he just doesn't die yet at that point? Like, what if there's some... I'm just trying to think of what else could explain why he's not there.
Maybe everyone's quick to say that he's dead because they don't like him or something. I don't know.
I like Terrellian. I'd sit on his face.
Oh, jeez, Vaski.
What?
I don't like Terrellian.
What? You don't like silver foxes?
He's too blinded. He's too rigid. He's too.
He's brings out the worst in Illyria. I think he's the reason why she can't see past the bias. And when he's out of the picture, she's actually gonna be like Jaina. Yeah, everyone cringe when I say that. In that she's gonna actually try to understand the other side, because that's what she's all about, trying to understand the void and trying to see that, you know, there isn't just the obvious path in front of you. Illyria is the new Illidan, but Illyria is also the new Jaina, question mark.
Just reading the comment by Gizmo about how Verisa, how he thinks that Verisa is going to end up being killed by Twilight's hammer assassin. Do you think that that could be the elf in the artwork that's laying down on the ground?
It could be, for sure. I don't really know how to feel about that, because I don't think Sylvanas would raise Verisa. I don't think that's, not right now. I don't think that's going to happen right now. Maybe that'll happen like way later on. But I almost feel like it's not Verisa's time to die yet. What if Sylvanas nurses her back to health? And like, what if she is the assassin that's there, but what if Sylvanas takes her back to to Orgrimmar or something, and nurses her back to health, and she realizes that like Sylvanas isn't that bad or something. What if it's just a totally not what you were expecting moment? Like, I don't know.
Could it be that the elf might be the character out of Elegy?
Yes. If you look at the art from Elegy, I think that they are wearing very similar clothing, and it appears that the art of the elf, I think she's in Darnassus, so I think she did make it to Darnassus. But then what is she doing on Darkshore?
Maybe that's where she managed to get up to before she didn't actually get across to Darnassus.
Yeah, what if like she got stopped or she talked to him and heated debate or whatever? Because I mean, we can look at it all we want and see if it's Illyria or whomever, but more and more with the novella, I feel like it is the Ranger.
Well, it's entirely possible the Ranger didn't make it to Darnassus, but what I'm trying to say is the art from Elegy, I thought that it was a drawing of her in Darnassus. Like, the background, I thought that was like the Temple of Elune area, but it's kind of hard to tell. It could be anything. I mean, that could have even been before she was stationed on wherever she was in the Silverwing Grove area.
That's true.
Very true.
What do you guys think? Can you see Sylvanas raising Verisa if that is her there who gets shot? Because everyone seems to think she would, and they took the arrows out of her, so they laid her down there, whoever that elf is.
I don't think she would raise her because she didn't even want to be a banshee herself, and she's not even enjoying herself in her own new body other than wanting to help her own Forsaken and such. I really don't think she would wish that upon another family member. I really don't.
What if this elf being the witness is incredibly important? Like, what if the fact that Sylvanas is there when the tree goes up and there's only one elf there and she's wounded and she's clearly been tended to? What if that is Verisa? And what if Verisa sees that Sylvanas is innocent, and then that puts Verisa in an incredibly, into turmoil, basically?
Yeah, it's possible that that could be the case. I don't see her raising Verisa. Just because like Vaski said, Sylvanas doesn't particularly like the idea of being undead. There was the pact, though, that she had with Verisa being raised and into undeath to go and live in the Undercity. But I don't think that I don't think that she would do that to her sister, even though it might sound strange. I still think Sylvanas does actually care about her sisters, and that's probably outside of Nathanos that really are the only people that she cares about at this current time.
Do you guys think that the elf is the same person from the Silithus cutscene that everyone spazzed out about? Because I kind of think that elf isn't as important. Or, first of all, I don't think that's an elf. I think that's a human. But, like, I think everyone's making a way bigger deal about that than it needed to be. If anything, it's probably one of the inside job, like, Alliance SI7 people who's actually working with the other party. Whether that be, you know, Old Gods, Ajara, Kultirans, Desolate Council, Twilight Hammer, whatever it may be.
No, I don't believe that the elf in the artwork, I mean, I could be absolutely wrong, but I don't believe the elf in the artwork at the Burning of Teldrassil is the same as the end of the cutscene in Silithus.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't find it similar. I feel like it's possibly either a ranger or Verisa.
I agree. Now, last question before we wrap up. I just want to see what you guys think about the whole SI7 thing. Are you like 100% convinced that the SI7 is not working in the Alliance's best interests? Sorry guys, the camera's cut out because I went to get the link for our Discord.
Oh, you're good.
It's so good. So do I think it's Vanessa Van Cleef at the end of the cutscene of Silithus? Was that the question?
Vanessa Van Cleef. No, I'm just saying, do you guys think that the SI7s, like 100%, are not working in the Alliance's best interest right now?
100%. I do not think they're in any form of interest with the Alliance right now. And I think that's a whole other discussion talking about Matthias Shaw, because he's a very questionable dude. I think they're being swayed and manipulated and are choosing whatever side's going to benefit them the most.
I think they might end up having like an internal conflict struggle. I think some of them are working with Shaw and Shaw's not. Just from the Alliance cutscene of the whole thing. But there would definitely be agents that would not be all up for that. There would be definitely agents that were loyal to the king.
I hope so. But yeah, it seems like for some reason something in there is corrupt, and I think Shaw is probably at the head of that.
Definitely. I definitely think there's something wrong with that guy. I don't like him. No one with that sort of a mustache can be trusted.
And those emerald eyes.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up. It's been like 2 hours and 40 minutes, so thank you guys for coming out to our stream. We're going to be doing this every other Wednesday, so the next one will be May 2nd at 8 p.m. Central. Usually, you know, less than 3 hours of stream. We're going to have a topic, an intermission topic number 2. We haven't decided on the next topics yet. We were thinking of doing the Harbingers series, which is about, I believe, Khadgar, is it Gul'dan, and someone else?
And Illidan.
So we might do that, and then we need a second topic. Maybe we might do Storm Rage. I'm not sure, but if you guys have any suggestions, just let us know. And check out our Discord if you haven't, because we're in there like every day talking about lore. And tell your friends if you liked our stream, because we're super new and we need all the people we can get at this point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming along with guys and chatting with us. It was a blast in the chat today. It was fun talking to all of you guys and seeing your ideas. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks guys for coming. Yeah, like Shirviu said, let us know if you guys want to talk about certain topics. If you come and join us in our Discord, you can leave us a note there. thanks for watching.
Yeah, I appreciate every person I've seen there. Thank you very much. Okay, goodbye.